Hi everyone, my name is Maya. I'm 34 years old. For 6 years I ran my father's consulting firm. Not officially. Not on paper. But every client knew my voice. Every proposal bore my fingerprints. Every crisis landed on my desk at 2 a.m. while my stepbrother Connor, 27 and fresh from his third gap year, learned to spell synergy correctly. I started at Caldwell and Associates the day after college graduation. 22 years old. Business degree still warm from the printer, ready to prove myself. My father, Richard Caldwell, stood at the mahogany desk in his corner office and said, "You'll start in client services. Work your way up like everyone else." I did. I worked weekends. I took the difficult clients, the ones who screamed about deadlines and budgets. I learned the business from the ground up. Operations, finance, strategy, implementation. By year 2 I was handling accounts worth $2.3 million annually. By year 3 senior partners asked for me by name. My father remarried when I was 25. Patricia brought Connor, then 20, into our lives. Nice kid. Aimless but nice. Partied through business school. Quoted leadership books he'd skimmed during hangovers. Showed up to family dinners with stories about networking events that sounded more like frat parties. 6 months after the wedding my father called me into his office. "Connor's joining the firm," he said. "I want you to train him. Show him the ropes. He's family now." I nodded. Family helps family. That's what I told myself. The training started simply. I walked Connor through client onboarding, proposal writing, project management basics. He nodded along, took notes on his iPad, asked surprisingly good questions. For the first few months I thought maybe he'd surprise us all. Then the pattern emerged. Connor would sit in client meetings, charming and photogenic, while I presented the strategies I'd built. Afterward my father would clap Connor's shoulder. "Great work in there, son. You're a natural." I'd carry the laptop, the files, the follow-up action items. When the Riverside account, our second largest client at $450,000 annually, nearly walked because of a missed deadline, I worked 72 hours straight to salvage it. Created a new implementation plan, negotiated extensions, delivered results 2 weeks early. The client sent champagne to the office with a note. "To Maya, you saved us. Thank you." At the company dinner that Friday my father stood and raised his glass. "I want to toast to Connor's quick thinking on the Riverside situation. That's the kind of leadership this company needs." Connor looked uncomfortable. I looked at my plate. Mrs. Chin, our office manager for 20 years, found me in the supply room later. I wasn't crying. I was just standing there holding printer paper, staring at nothing. "He knows," she said softly. "Richard knows you saved Riverside. Everyone knows." "Then why?" "Because admitting it means admitting he needs you more than he wants to." She squeezed my shoulder. "You're not invisible, Maya. You're essential. There's a difference." The invisible labor continued. I trained Connor for 6 years. Showed him how to read financial statements, manage vendor relationships, handle difficult conversations. He learned slowly how to look competent in meetings. He never learned how to do the actual work. When clients called with emergencies they called me. When proposals needed final review at midnight I did it. When the quarterly board presentation needed building I built it, then watched Connor deliver it to applause. My father created a new role for Connor in year 4. Junior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. It came with a corner office, a $120,000 salary, and business cards with gold embossing. I was still senior consultant at $95,000, in a cubicle near the bathrooms. "You're doing important work," my father said when I asked about my own promotion. "Client-facing work. The foundation of this company." "I've been here 9 years," I said. "I manage accounts worth $4.5 million. I've trained every new hire for the last 3 years. I've never missed a deadline or lost a client. And we appreciate that. But leadership is about more than technical skills, Maya. It's about vision, presence." Connor has that natural charisma clients respond to. Connor, who'd called a client dude in an email the previous week. Connor, who'd missed a major presentation because he'd been hungover from a bachelor party. Connor, who asked me to explain the difference between revenue and profit margin when he was supposed to be presenting our financial strategy to investors. But Connor was charming. Connor played golf with my father every Thursday. Connor called Patricia mom and made my father laugh at dinner parties. Connor was the son my father had always wanted. I was just the daughter who made it all work. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in October. My father called an all-staff meeting for 3 p.m. Unusual but not unprecedented. I assumed it was about the new client we just signed, a $680,000 contract I'd negotiated over 6 weeks. I'd prepared a brief presentation about the implementation timeline. The conference room filled. 23 employees from senior partners to junior analysts. My father stood at the head of the table, Connor beside him in a navy suit I'd helped him pick out last month. "Thank you all for coming," my father began. "I have an exciting announcement about Caldwell and Associates' future." He talked about growth, market positioning, the need for fresh leadership to take us into the next decade. I watched colleagues nodding, taking notes, assuming this was another corporate vision speech. "Which is why," my father continued, "I'm pleased to announce that Connor Caldwell will be assuming the role of president, effective immediately." The room erupted in applause. Polite, professional, expected. I sat frozen. President. Not senior VP. Not executive director. President. The role second only to CEO, the role that controlled operations, strategy, client relationships. The role I'd been doing unofficially for 3 years. "Connor brings fresh perspective and natural leadership to this position," my father said, beaming. "I'm confident he'll take Caldwell and Associates to new heights." Connor stood, shook hands, accepted congratulations. He glanced at me once, something that might have been apology flickering across his face before the smile returned. After the meeting, I returned to my cubicle. Sat down. Stared at my computer screen showing the proposal I'd been refining for the Mitchum account. My father appeared at my cubicle entrance an hour later. "I want you to help Connor transition into the role," he said. Not asked. Said, "You know the operations better than anyone. Spend the next 2 weeks walking him through your key accounts and processes." "My accounts," I repeated. "The company's accounts, Maya. You're a team player. I know you'll make this smooth." Something in my chest, something that had been bending for 6 years, finally snapped clean. "And what's my new role?" I asked quietly. "You'll continue as senior consultant. Your work is valuable. Just because Connor is president doesn't diminish." After 9 years. After building half the client base. After training every new hire including Connor himself. After salvaging Riverside, landing Mitchum, negotiating the Thornton contract that saved us during the pandemic. After all that, I'm still senior consultant in a cubicle near the bathrooms, and Connor, who still asks me what deliverables means, is president. My father's expression hardened. "This isn't about keeping score, Maya. Connor has qualities you lack. Presence. Charisma. Leadership instinct. You're an excellent executor, but you're not CEO material. You never have been." He walked away. "Not CEO material." I stared at those words. Let them settle. Let them crystallize into something clear and sharp. Mrs. Chin appeared with tea an hour later. Set it on my desk without speaking. When she turned to leave, she paused. "My daughter works at Kramer Industries," she said softly. "They're always looking for senior strategists. I could make an introduction if you wanted." I looked up at her. She smiled sadly. "Just something to think about," she said. That night, I sat in my apartment with my laptop. Pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been keeping for 3 years. Not intentionally, just professionally. A habit from my compulsive documentation of everything. Every client account I managed. Every proposal I'd written. Every contract I'd negotiated. Every crisis I'd solved. Every late night, every weekend, every holiday I'd worked while Connor posted Instagram stories from beach vacations. The numbers were staggering. In 6 years, I'd brought in $18.7 million in new business. I'd retained clients with a 94% renewal rate. I'd trained 11 employees who'd been promoted past me. I'd built the foundation of Caldwell and Associates' success, and my reward was watching someone else get credit for the house. The email from Kramer Industries arrived the next morning. Subject: confidential offer, senior strategy director position. I almost deleted it. Loyalty. Family. My father's voice in my head about commitment and gratitude and team players. I opened it instead. "Dear Ms. Caldwell, your work in the consulting space hasn't gone unnoticed. We at Kramer Industries are expanding our strategic advisory division and believe your expertise would be invaluable. We'd like to discuss a senior strategy director position with complete autonomy, remote flexibility, and compensation reflecting your actual contributions. Would you be available for a confidential conversation? Best regards, Dana Kramer, CEO, Kramer Industries." I stared at the screen. Read it 3 times. Then I replied, available tomorrow 6 p.m. Dana Kramer's office overlooked the city, floor-to-ceiling windows, clean lines, art that suggested actual taste rather than corporate purchasing department decisions. She was 50-something, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. She offered coffee, not the burned sludge from our office break room, but actual good coffee. I've watched your career for 2 years, Dana said without preamble. Every major win at Caldwell has your fingerprints on it. The Riverside save. The Mitchum negotiation. The Thornton pandemic pivot. You're the brain of that operation. My father would disagree. Your father is protecting his investment in his stepson's ego. Dana's tone wasn't cruel, just factual. I'm not interested in his feelings. I'm interested in results. And you deliver results. She slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. The offer was breathtaking. Senior Strategy Director. $475,000 base salary. 5 times my current pay. Performance bonuses. Equity. Full creative control over my projects. Remote work. No hierarchy to navigate, no credit to share, no training of unqualified relatives. Why me? I asked. Because you don't need a seat at someone else's table, Dana said. You build the tables. You just haven't been allowed to sign your name to them yet. I thought about my father's words. Not CEO material. I'll need to give 2 weeks' notice, I said. Take a month if you need it. I want you rested and ready, not burned out and bitter. Dana smiled. Although between us, watching Caldwell scramble when you leave will be its own compensation. I signed the offer letter that night. Gave notice the next morning. My father's face went through several interesting color variations. You're leaving? No. Right when Connor is transitioning into his new role. That's exactly why I'm leaving. He should learn to run the company he's been made president of. This is disloyal. After everything I've given you. You gave me a cubicle and a paycheck below market rate while I built your success, I said quietly. Kramer Industries gave me a title that matches my work and compensation that reflects my value. This wasn't a difficult decision. You'll regret this, my father said. His voice shook, with anger or fear I couldn't tell. You can't just walk away from family. I'm not walking away from family, Dad. I'm walking away from being treated like staff in my own father's company. Connor appeared in the doorway. Maya, wait. Maybe Dad can reconsider the structure. Make you executive VP or something. Or something, I repeated. 6 years of training you, Connor. 6 years of doing your work while you took credit. 6 years of watching you get promoted past me while I kept the whole operation running. And now, when I'm leaving, suddenly there's room to reconsider the structure. I didn't ask for this, Connor said quietly. I know. But you took it anyway. I picked up the box with my desk belongings, not much after 9 years. A plant Mrs. Chin had given me. My favorite pens. The Riverside champagne note which I'd kept in my drawer like a talisman. Mrs. Chin hugged me in the lobby. Pressed a check for $500 into my hand. Not charity, she said firmly. An investment. Come back and tell me about your success. You're going to be extraordinary. I left without a coat even though it was October and the air bit clean and cold. I just needed to be out, to be walking, to be done with the building that had consumed 9 years of my life. The night air smelled like rain and possibility. At Kramer Industries I was given an office with windows. A team that reported to me. Projects with my name on them. Lead strategist. Maya Caldwell, in bold text on every proposal. The first time Dana asked my opinion in a leadership meeting, I waited for someone to interrupt. To explain what I really meant. To simplify my words for the room. No one did. Dana just nodded and said, solid thinking. Let's build on that. Sharon, my direct manager, scheduled weekly one-on-ones not to micromanage but to ask, what do you need? How can I support your work? When I delivered my first major strategy presentation, an international expansion plan for a $2.1 million client, the board applauded. The client signed immediately. Dana sent an email to the whole company. This is what expertise looks like. Maya Caldwell just opened doors we've been knocking on for 3 years. I cried in my car afterward. Not from sadness. From the strange, disorienting relief of being seen. My therapist, Dr. Walsh, helped me process the shift. You're grieving, she said during our third session. Not the job. The fantasy of what that relationship with your father could have been. He's called 17 times, I said. I haven't answered. That's boundary setting. How does it feel? Terrifying. And peaceful. Both can be true. Dr. Walsh handed me a worksheet on boundary scripts. Remember, no is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting yourself. The evidence folder helped. I'd archived everything: emails, project notes, client testimonials, the spreadsheet of my 9 years of contributions. Every time doubt crept in, maybe I'm being selfish, maybe I should have stayed, maybe he was right about me, I opened that folder. Let the data speak. The data said you were always enough. He just couldn't admit it. 3 months into my role at Kramer, the earthquake hit Caldwell and Associates. It started with Riverside. They called Connor with a routine question about their contract renewal. Connor, who'd never actually read the contract, fumbled the answer. Gave conflicting information. The client called back 3 times, increasingly frustrated. Then they called me. Maya, thank God. Listen, we're having issues with Caldwell and I know you've moved on, but would Kramer Industries be interested in taking over our account? I thought about loyalty, family, the right thing to do. Then I thought about 6 years of invisible labor. Let me connect you with our client services director, I said. Riverside moved their $450,000 account to Kramer the following week. Then Mitchum called. The account I'd landed and managed for 2 years. Connor had missed 2 of their quarterly reviews. When they'd expressed concerns about strategy direction, he'd assured them, the team has it handled, without understanding what the concerns were. We don't want the team, the Mitchum CEO told me over coffee. We want you. You were always the brains behind Caldwell. We're just following the results. Mitchum brought $680,000 to Kramer. The third defection made headlines. Thornton Industries moves advisory account to Kramer, seeking proven leadership. My phone exploded with messages. Connor first, tone no longer casual. Maya. We need to talk. Dad is. Can you call me? Please. Then board members from Caldwell. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting. Discuss possibilities. Then my father. You're poaching our clients. This is industrial sabotage. I blocked the number. Dr. Walsh had prepared me for this. They'll escalate when they realize they can't control you anymore. Expect commands, then guilt, then threats, then begging. Don't engage unless you want to. I didn't want to. Dana, however, was delighted. 3 major accounts in 3 months? Maya, you're not just good at this. You're exceptional. I'm promoting you to Executive Strategy Director. Here's your new compensation package. The new offer included equity worth $850,000 when it vested. I'd made more in 3 months at Kramer than in 9 years at Caldwell. The confrontation started in month 4. Connor showed up at my apartment building. The doorman called up. There's a Connor Caldwell here for you. Tell him I'm not available. Through the lobby camera feed, I watched Connor stand there for 10 minutes, looking lost before finally leaving. My father tried next. Showed up at my office building, made it past security somehow, waited in the lobby. Dana's assistant intercepted him. Miss Caldwell isn't taking meetings today. Would you like to leave a message? The message he left was 17 minutes of voicemail. I listened to 3 minutes. Heard betrayal and family and reputation and deleted it. The formal letter arrived via courier. Legal letterhead. Caldwell and Associates was exploring legal action regarding client solicitation and breach of non-compete. I forwarded it to Kramer's legal team. They laughed. You never signed a non-compete, the attorney said. And clients choosing to follow their preferred consultant isn't solicitation. If Caldwell wants to sue, we'll countersue for wage theft. You were doing director-level work at consultant pay for years. I sent my father one text. I have documentation of 9 years of contributions. Your lawyers will find it expensive. Don't. The lawsuit threat disappeared. Patricia called, crying. Maya, sweetie, your father's blood pressure is through the roof. The doctor says stress like this could cause a heart attack. Could you at least talk to him? For my sake. Patricia, I'm sorry Dad is stressed. But his blood pressure isn't my responsibility. It hasn't been for a long time. But we're family. Family doesn't use one daughter's labor to build another child's career, then act surprised when she leaves. I said it gently, firmly. I wish you all well. I'm just doing it from a distance now. The industry whispers became roars. Caldwell and Associates losing ground. Kramer Industries gaining market share. Former consulting powerhouse struggling post-leadership transition. Mrs. Chin texted me. 6 more staff members quit this week. Including me. Connor doesn't know how to run payroll. I'm too old for this chaos. Frig soon. We met at a wine bar downtown. She looked lighter somehow. Relieved. It's imploding, she said. Clients calling and no one knows account details. Connor scheduling meetings over existing meetings. Richard screaming at everyone. The office feels like a sinking ship and everyone's grabbing life rafts. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be. Mrs. Chin squeezed my hand. You didn't sink it. You just stopped bailing water. There's a difference. Month 5 brought the desperate phase. Connor and my father both in suits waiting in Kramer's lobby. Dana called me before I came down from my office. 2 men here claiming to be family. Want me to have security remove them. I thought about it. How easy it would be to simply not engage. To let them sit there waiting the way I'd waited for recognition for 9 years. But Dr. Walsh's voice. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you create. I'll come down, I said. But I'm not going anywhere private with them. We sat in the lobby cafe. Glass walls, public space, witnesses. My father looked older. Thinner. Connor looked exhausted. Thank you for seeing us, my father began. I waited. We may have underestimated your contributions to the company, he continued. Lawyer language. We'd like to discuss you returning as Senior Vice President of Strategic Operations. Competitive compensation. Decision-making authority. A real leadership role. What's competitive? I asked. $180,000. Plus bonuses. I almost laughed. Kramer pays me $475,000 base. I have equity. I have autonomy. I have respect. Why would I take a pay cut to return to a company that called me not CEO material? I was wrong about that, my father said. His voice cracked slightly. I see that now. You were running things. You always were. Connor needed the opportunity. And I didn't? Silence. You built a company that couldn't function without the person you refused to promote, I said quietly. That's not my failure, Dad. It's yours. Connor spoke for the first time. I never wanted this. I told Dad you should have been promoted. But he insisted I was ready and I wanted to believe him. I know, I said. And I did. Connor wasn't malicious. Just weak. Just willing to accept what he hadn't earned because it was easier than fighting. But you took it anyway. You stood in boardrooms and accepted credit for work I did. You could have refused. You didn't. The company is dying, my father said flatly. We've lost 12 accounts. Half our staff. Investors are pulling out. If we don't turn this around in 60 days, we're filing bankruptcy. Then you should probably hire a qualified strategist, I said. I hear there are good ones at Kramer Industries. I stood to leave. Maya, please. My father's voice broke. I'm asking for help. I'm asking you to save the company. I looked at him. This man who'd given me a job but never a chance. Who'd handed my stepbrother keys to a kingdom I'd built. Who'd called me not CEO material while I did the work of an executive for 9 years. You had 9 years to ask for my help while valuing it, I said softly. You used those years to tell me I wasn't enough. That Connor was better. That loyalty meant accepting less. I believed you until I didn't. And then I built something without you. Something where my work has my name on it. Where my success is acknowledged. Where I'm not just the invisible engine keeping someone else's career running. So that's it, my father said bitterly. You're just going to let everything I built collapse? You built, Dad. I looked at him steadily. The data shows I brought in $18.7 million over 9 years. I retained clients at 94%. I trained your staff. I managed crises. I wrote the proposals. I negotiated the contracts. I held your company together while you handed credit to someone who played golf. I picked up my bag. What you built was a company dependent on labor you refused to credit. What I built is a career that doesn't require your approval. We're both living with our choices. I walked out. Didn't look back. Through the glass doors I saw them sitting there. Father and son. Looking at each other like they'd just realized they were lost. The article appeared 6 weeks later. The hidden cost of family loyalty. How one consultant rebuilt her career after being overlooked. The city's business journal had contacted me about an interview. At first I declined. Too personal. Too raw. But Dana encouraged it. Your story matters, she said. There are 100 other Mayas out there working in family businesses, being told they're not enough while doing everything. They need to know they can leave. The interview was fair. Factual. I didn't name Caldwell directly, but the details were specific enough. The journalist did excellent research. I spent 9 years building someone else's career while being told I wasn't leadership material, Caldwell explains. The data showed otherwise. Sometimes the people who should see your worth are the last ones who will. The article included my new title at Kramer, my successful client portfolio, my role as keynote speaker at the upcoming City Business Alliance conference. It went viral in professional circles. My inbox flooded with messages from women in family businesses, men in family businesses, anyone who'd ever been overlooked, undervalued, told they weren't quite right for promotion while someone less qualified got the corner office. Thank you for speaking up. I'm in the same situation. Your story gave me courage to leave. 8 years doing my brother's work. Reading this helped me see I'm not crazy. Connor texted, I read the article. You were right about everything. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. My father sent one final email. You've humiliated this family publicly. Don't expect forgiveness. I replied, I don't. Then I blocked the address. The bankruptcy filing was announced 3 weeks before the City Business Alliance Gala. Caldwell and Associates files Chapter 11. Industry icon crumbles. The article detailed the collapse. Client losses. Staff departures. Failed investor negotiations. The building sold to cover debts. Richard Caldwell stepping down. Connor Caldwell position eliminated. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not guilt. Just a strange, distant sadness for what could have been if my father had chosen differently. Mrs. Chen called. How are you doing with the news? I'm okay. Really? Is that strange? No, honey. It means you've healed. You've built something new. The old stuff is just old stuff now. He was right. I built something new. At Kramer, I just closed a $3.2 million international client. Dana was promoting me again. Vice President of Strategic Development. My team had grown to 8 people, all of whom I trained the way I wished I'd been trained. With patience, recognition, and opportunities to shine. Jennifer, one of my analysts, brought her family to the office for her promotion announcement. Her parents hugged her, crying with pride. We always knew you were brilliant, her father said. I excused myself to the bathroom. Cried for 5 minutes. Returned with a smile. Dr. Walsh helped me process it. You're not grieving what you lost. You're grieving what you never had. Will it always hurt? It'll hurt less. And one day, you'll realize the freedom is worth more than the fantasy. The City Business Alliance Gala was black tie, 500 professionals, in a hotel ballroom with crystal chandeliers and wine that didn't come from boxes. I was keynote speaker. Topic: Building leadership outside traditional structures. Dana adjusted my collar backstage. You nervous? Terrified. Good. It means you care. She smiled. They're lucky to hear from you. Go show them what underestimated looks like. I walked on stage to applause. Scanned the crowd. In the back, poorly hidden behind a column, were my father and Connor. Both in suits that looked expensive but worn. My father's face was haggard. Connor looked like he wanted to disappear. I could have called security. I could have had them removed. Instead, I began my speech. 6 years ago, I worked for a company that told me loyalty was more valuable than leadership. I believed them until I realized loyalty without respect is just servitude. I talked about invisible labor. About documentation, keeping records, knowing your worth in data. About recognizing when you're building someone else's kingdom while your own potential rots in a cubicle. I was told I wasn't CO material, I said, looking directly at my father. By someone who couldn't run his company without the person he refused to promote. And when I left, taking my expertise and my work ethic, the empire collapsed. Not because I sabotaged anything, but because the foundation was one person pretending to be leadership while another person did the actual work. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Here's what I learned. Your worth isn't determined by who refuses to see it. Your potential isn't limited by who tells you you're not enough. And loyalty to people who undervalue you isn't virtue, it's self-destruction. I talked about Kramer. About Dana saying you build the tables. About Sharon asking what I needed instead of telling me what to do. About finally being in a room where my voice didn't need to be filtered through someone else's ego. If you're working somewhere that treats you like foundation instead of architect, document everything. Build your evidence folder. And when you're ready, walk. Don't threaten. Don't negotiate. Just walk. Build something new. Build something with your name on it. The applause was thunderous. Standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of people wanted to talk, to share their stories, to ask advice. My father and Connor approached as the crowd thinned. Security noticed, started forward. I waved them off. "That speech," my father said. His voice was quiet. Defeated. "You were talking about me." "I was talking about a system that protects ego over competence. You were just an example. I never realized how much of the company came from you." "You didn't want to realize, Dad. It was easier to give Connor credit than to admit you'd built something dependent on the daughter you kept telling wasn't enough." Connor shifted uncomfortably. "For what it's worth, Maya, you were right. About all of it. I wasn't ready. I'm enrolling in actual leadership training now. Starting from scratch." "Good," I said. And meant it. "You'll be better for it." My father looked at me with something that might have been pride, might have been regret. "You've built something remarkable here." "I know." "Is there?" He stopped. Started again. "Is there any possibility of reconciliation? I can't undo the past, but maybe." "Dad, I forgive you." The words surprised me, but they were true. "I forgive you for not seeing my worth. For choosing Connor over fairness. For building a company on my labor while calling me inadequate. I forgive all of it." Hope flickered in his eyes. "But forgiveness isn't reconciliation," I continued gently. "It isn't access. You can be forgiven and still not be part of my life. Those are separate things. I'm your father. You are. And I hope you build something new. Something where you value the people doing the work. But I've built my own table now, and there's no seat here for people who spent years telling me I didn't deserve one." I turned to leave. Paused. "Thank you, though, for denying me that promotion. If you'd made me president, I'd never have left. I'd never have learned what I was capable of without you. So genuinely, thank you for showing me I didn't need your approval to succeed." I walked away. This time I did look back. Just once. They stood there, father and son, watching me disappear into the crowd of professionals who knew my name, knew my work, treated me like the architect I'd always been. 6 months later, I launched my own consulting firm, Caldwell Strategic Group. Not to compete with my father. Not for revenge. But because Dana had said something that stuck with me. "You build the tables." I did. I built a firm that valued documentation, credited contributions, promoted based on merit. I hired Mrs. Chin as Sue. Jennifer came over from Kramer as senior analyst. We were small, 8 people, but profitable, ethical, and growing. My father sent a card. "Congratulations on your venture. Proud of you." I filed it away. Didn't respond. Connor sent flowers. "You were right. Building from scratch is humbling. Good luck." I sent a thank you note. Professional. Brief. The numbers came in at year-end. My firm had brought in $1.8 million in revenue. First year, small team, building from nothing. Dana called to congratulate me. "You did it. Built something with your name on it." I did. Any regrets? I thought about it. About the 9 years at Caldwell. The invisible labor. The cubicle near the bathrooms. The speech where my father called me inadequate. "No regrets," I said. It all led here. On Sunday I drove out to the beach. Walked along the shore as the sun set, painting the sky in oranges and purples. The wind was cold, clean, carrying the smell of salt and possibility. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Richard. Just wanted to say I saw the article about your firm's first-year success. You were always capable. I'm sorry I couldn't see it." I stared at the message. Waited for the familiar ache of wanting his approval, his recognition, his pride. It didn't come. Instead, I felt peaceful. Whole. Complete without his validation. I typed, "I appreciate that. I hope you're well." Then I blocked the number. Not from anger. From boundaries. From the understanding that some doors close not because of hatred, but because keeping them open would mean stepping backward into a version of myself that no longer existed. The waves rolled in, steady and eternal. I sat on the sand, pulled out my laptop, and outlined the strategy for our next client pitch. Above me, the sky darkened into stars. I worked until the cold drove me back to my car, back to my apartment, back to the life I'd built with my own hands. Documented, credited, valued, mine. The building at Caldwell and Associates had gone dark, floor by floor, until nothing remained but an empty shell and a broken sign. But somewhere else, in 8 offices filled with people who respected each other, lights blazed bright. I built those tables. I always had.